Facts, man. Well said.
Facts. Oh, yeah. All right, John, can you read paragraph 9 from chapter 12? Excuse me, book 12.
Okay.
And then we'll shift into a different part of our episode from there.
The model for the application of your principles is the boxer rather than the gladiator. The gladiator puts down or takes up the sword he uses, but the boxer always has his hands and needs only to clench them into fists.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Paradyme Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're extremely grateful that you decided to share some of your time with us today. So before we get started, we want to remind you, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribing, liking, and sharing this video is a great way of supporting our channel. For all other associated podcast platforms, go ahead and drop us a 5-star review. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on every single thing, Amazon podcasts, wherever you want to find podcasts, we're on that thing. So go ahead and listen to us on there and drop a 5-star review. It's another way of helping out the channel, and we'd be extremely grateful for that. So we love interacting with you. So follow us on all our social media platforms, and all the information you need will be down in the description box below. So this week's episode is going to be about meditations for Marcus Aurelius. So look at this beautiful cover. Look at that. It's a piece of art,
isn't it? It's a good book.
Isn't it?
It's like a little Bible.
Right? And that's exactly how it plays out. So a little background on who Marcus Aurelius is. Marcus Aurelius was born April 26th, 121 current era in Rome, Italy, and died March 17th, the year 180 in the current era. He was Roman emperor from 161 to 180, and he's best known for his book, Meditations on Stoic Philosophy. Marcus Aurelius has symbolized for many generations in the West the golden age of the Roman Empire. So we're going to go a little bit into the overview of the book, break it down book by book because there isn't chapters in this book, and we'll mention a quote and kind of have a little discussion about each chapter, or book, I should say. So book 1 is about the lessons he learned from his family, his teachers, and various philosophical schools. So paragraph 16, it says, "From my adoptive father, gentleness and immovable adherence to decisions made after full consideration, no vain taste for so-called honors, stamina and perseverance, a ready ear for anyone with any proposal for the common good, to reward impartially, giving everyone their due, experience of where to tighten and where to relax." So it goes on further in there. But this chapter really stood out to me because it seemed like a good exercise to do as an individual personally.
Yeah.
It's what we did with this book is where we could identify the overarching topic of each chapter is to make a question or a writing prompt out of it and write and kind of do our own exercise of meditations in Marcus Aurelius's kind of format that he had. Mm-hmm. So what we did is did our own writing assignment. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that and how we went forward with that. So do you guys have anything to say about that? Any remarks about the writing assignment?
It was a very interesting, first kind of intro into the book to start with, kind of just paying homage to people in your life that have had an effect on how you think and how you should conduct your life. The writing assignments that we did for ourselves I thought it was very interesting because I got to take inventory of who has shaped my life and who I take inspiration from, and who's in my circle, if you will. So yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree. I think I stumbled into some things I probably hadn't thought about in a while.
Yeah.
So
I remember us talking about in the first writing assignment. Yeah. And it got a little deep.
Yeah.
It gets really deep, actually. Yeah.
Definitely. And it's a good exercise to do. So we'd recommend you guys to go ahead and try that. You might stumble into something. I know I did. I stumbled into some personal stuff that I hadn't really thought about in a while. And it kind of brought it to the forefront and gave me some more time to think about those and kind of deal with those. So really good writing assignment. And I think it's a good way to kind of exercise your own philosophy in a sense.
Yeah. Gives you like some gratitude too for the people you do have in your life, because that's like the purpose of this book. Essentially, is he's just acknowledging to himself all the people that kind of affected him from when he was born till whenever he passed, or however he kept note of that. But it's kind of cool, like, because this book wasn't meant. I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but this book wasn't meant to be published.
Right.
So it was all his own writings to himself, and so. Can't remember exactly how. I think it talks about it in the introduction or somewhere in the brief preface or something. Yeah. It talks about how the journals were meant just for him, and then someone found it and then they published it or something like that. I may be getting that incorrect, but that's essentially like somewhat of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just personal writings.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, the writing assignments that we did for ourselves, the first one, which was this book one's, or first part of the book, was titled List the Characters of Your Life, include what you learned from them and why you're grateful for them. And so we each kind of did that on our own and then discussed it a little bit after talking about the first book.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, when we did this writing assignment, I kind of just thought, for anyone who watches anime, the show My Hero Academia and the All for One, that like each person that he was grateful for, that taught him something, that gave him an attribute, that now it's all cultivated in him. So he's like, hey, all these good things that I think that I like about life, I learned them from this person and that person. And that's kind of how I thought about it. And then it's just like, are you teaching anybody anything that could potentially be good? Like, even if it's just one thing, you know? What are you passing on to the next generation when you leave? Because those people that he listed, like, they may, for sure everyone's dead now, but you know, Marcus Aurelius passed on something that we're talking about right now. So that's kind of how I thought about it.
Yeah. And we'll get into the book where he talks about like how short life is, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. In book one, he talks about he's thankful and what he's learned from God, his adopted father, his mom, friends, teachers, people from Stoic philosophical schools,
emperors,
all these different people from history and his current life that he was living at the time. So it's a really good exercise. We would totally emphasize, if you go and try it out, you might really find something really cool that you haven't really ever thought about. It might just be in the back of your brain. So go ahead and try that out. And so we're going to jump to book 2, which is about the importance of living in the present moment, of not worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. So Devin, you have a quote.
What, can you read the paragraph? Like
2:14.
Okay, so the quote states, even if you were destined to live 3,000 years or 10 times that long, nevertheless, remember that no one loses any life other than the one he lives, or lives any other than the one he loses. I think that the moral, that like the premise of this book that I grasped and what he was trying to explain to people is, it doesn't matter if someone lets you live forever, right? If you had that chance, would you take it? How would we know? We're human. We wouldn't know. But if someone gave you that opportunity, how do you know your life's going to be any better than what it is now? And so I think living in the present moment, teaching yourself, like, if I had 1,000,000 years compared to like 1,000 years, or even the 50 years I have on this planet, how best am I going to utilize them? And so what he's trying to teach you is, like, live your best version, do the things you got to do today. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about the past. All we know is the present. He goes into a lot of detail. I love reading philosophical stories because it gives, I think we've mentioned it before, I think of it like a sphere, and all of it's pretty much the same messaging, but it's just attacked from a different angle. It's said in a different way. And so I think that's what I love so much about philosophy, is that it's a lot of the teachings are the same teachings. It's just a different messaging. It's a different way of saying it. Mm-hmm. And I think that really gets, Marcus Aurelius really gets his point across with talking about the present moment, and don't focus on the future. Don't focus on the past. Mm-hmm. All you have is right now. So
with that in mind, I had written this question out a couple weeks ago. how would you recommend living a life if we can't live as if tomorrow doesn't exist, and we can't live as if we will live in eternity, and we must own the past? So the question being, how would you recommend living a life with the idea in mind?
Damn, I think because I answered that, I can't remember how I answered it.
Some deep questions.
Yeah.
It's too deep, bro. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Well, I would put simply like accountability for sure. Like, you know what I mean? We can't go back, but we can't go back. You can't change who you were in the past. You can only work forward. If you let your past self define who your future self will become, you'll forever be stuck in the past. Okay. And so just not just taking accountability, but just acknowledging like, hey, I had to make some mistakes to get where I'm at. I had to mess up. I had to fail a little bit. I had to go through the successions of life to get where I am now. So I don't think any aspect of life is a point to be like, damn, my past defines me and I can never change. I think that's a pivotal point for some people, right? Like some people can kind of like just dwindle down, or some people can be like, oh, that's a stopping point, and then like I'm gonna kind of like plateau and then move up from there. Or move down, but I need to like analyze a little bit. Mm-hmm. So,
the idea of destiny, then.
Yeah.
So taking accountability from the past, but knowing that it's malleable and it's not a rigid thing.
Yeah, it's flexible.
It makes me think of our tagline, our motto, now equals tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it again, that's why I wish I was like better at giving these like analogous stories or like these metaphors and stuff. Because Marcus Aurelius, if you read this book, he does a really great job, especially at the time he wrote this. Like he's way ahead of his time, right? And he wrote this to himself. There wasn't something like he was trying to achieve from this. So it's just cool to see that like. Dude, I don't know. Like fate and destiny is it's crazy. Go ahead, John.
I mean, to say he's ahead of his time, I don't think makes sense with the whole book, because the whole book is he's like everything's come and gone already. Like what am I? One speck of the human experience. So like what he's saying is just the human experience, ahead of his time or not. Like I don't think it is ahead of his time. Like what he's saying is like. Okay, one thing that you talked about, because it was further along in that paragraph, but he goes, no one can lose either the past or the future. How could anyone be deprived of what he does not possess? So, like, I think he's making a statement, all we have is right now. Like, we're all experiencing what's happening just right now. And the like, his philosophy on things ahead of his time, I think he makes the point to be like, I'm not ahead of my time. I'm just another human living the exact experience that someone else did before me. He's just trying to make sense of like what is now.
Yeah, he's like the most humble dude that's ever lived. I'm just kidding. No, but this one thing that I want to point out for the readers, if you're thinking about getting this book, is that it's broken up into books or chapters, if you will, but they're called books. And then there's paragraphs within each book, and they're kind of like almost little verses, if you will. Sometimes they can be larger paragraphs, or just like short sentences. And it's kind of like reading the Bible. Yeah. Like book 1, chapter 14 or book 1, paragraph 14, excuse me. And they can be very deep and make you think a lot. And I think we all kind of read this in our own fashion, right? Yeah. I would read all of this at once so I could sit there and contemplate and think for at least an hour or two.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say, too, not necessarily like the Bible either. It could just be like a book of poems, Some people hear Bible and they're like, or like, this isn't a doctrine either, It's not even like either way, it could just be a book of poems. Each one taken individually is like beautiful,
Yeah, true.
Book of poems.
Yeah,
that's a nice way.
All right, you guys ready to move forward to book 3?
Yeah.
So book 3 is about the importance of being virtuous and living a good life despite the challenges and obstacles we face. So David, paragraph 12.
David chapter 12, verse 13. 12. All right, so I'm going to read this. If you set yourself to your present task along the path of true reason, with all determination, vigor, and goodwill, If you admit no distraction, but keep your own divinity pure and standing strong, as if you had to surrender to it right now. If you grapple this to you, expect nothing, shirking nothing, but self-content with each present action, taken in accordance with nature and a heroic truthfulness in all that you say and mean, then you will lead a good life, and nobody is able to stop you. So that was a lot, but I think what I got from this section of the book was that despite like who you may think in your life is having power to stop you, or kind of halt you and to achieve your own success in life, I think as long as you stick to virtues or values and just be a good person, a good member of society, no one's going to be able to stop you. And I think you might be able to break down a lot of the obstacles that you maybe think that you have in front of you, and you maybe underestimate how much power you have over these obstacles that are in your life right now.
Yeah, I think, the discussion point we have afterwards is to talk about what virtues do we believe lead to a good life. And he mentions a few in here. He talks about true reason, determination, vigor, goodwill, no distraction, keep your divinity pure and standing strong, expecting nothing, shirking nothing, so accountability, and self-content with present action, taking in accordance with nature and heroic truthfulness. There's another one, truthfulness, and all that you say and mean. So, being a person of integrity, then you will lead a good life. So each of those being virtues or principles that he mentions in that paragraph. So in our writing assignment, we took time to write what virtues and qualities should individuals cultivate in themselves to live a virtuous life. Do you guys want to share maybe one of those? So this is writing prompt 3.
Yeah, sure. And I want to say I'm pretty sure that we were supposed to, if we could, link the virtues from someone that we mentioned in like the first writing assignment that we learned from. Right?
Okay.
Isn't that what we did?
We just wrote in general, but we can do that. That's not a bad idea.
Well, like truthfulness is a big one for me,
Yeah.
I was going to say the
and
same
like
thing.
growing up, that was something that my dad taught me, as like, hey, this is a big deal, So, and like he stressed that like that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, to be an honest person.
That no one can respect you if you're a liar,
Yep.
That's pretty much
I think
what
we
I was
mentioned
thinking.
that. Like that's how like my mom raised me. It was almost like she tried to instill in me that since you're like a boy or a man in this world, your word is your bond. Like your word is your balls. Your word is everything on this planet. Like, so if you start to fabricate lies, or you start to lie on your own willpower, you start to lie on other people behind their backs or even in front of them, that's a definition or defining moment for who you are. That's not defining somebody else. It's solely in the trustworthiness of the person you're going to become. And I think that she instilled that in me too, is like, it's almost like it's frightening to me to be a liar. Like, because it's to a certain point you lie and you keep lying, you'll start to forget your own lie, because it's easier to be truthful than it is to lie, because you always have to like work up I don't know, like I've always seen that in people that lie a lot, like they
snowball effect.
Yeah, they forget their previous lies, so they make up a new one.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
So truthfulness being a big one, honesty. So in one of mine that I wrote out, it kind of came out like we all, in elementary school, I don't know if you guys had it, but the pillars. Yeah, like all the pillars
6
of
pillars
the
of
character. Yeah. Yeah. So it kind of came out being like that, but I thought one being always having a goal or a purpose. So I thought that one was super important. A person without purpose is kind of a drifter, using words of Napoleon Hill. Yeah, you don't want to be a drifter. And if you have at least a lighthouse where you can kind of steer in a certain direction, I think that leads to a good life as well.
Yeah. I think kindness was one that I had touched upon.
I wanted to talk about that one. Why do you think kindness is a virtue?
A virtue? I think it's important to recognize that even though you disagree with someone, or you may have someone that is, I don't know, an adversary in your life, that it's important to be kind on a human level, to recognize that they're human as well. Nobody's perfect. It's a good. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I fucked that up a little bit, but
Yeah, no, because I listened to this podcast and they were talking about it's sort of based in relationships, but they talked about that exact thing, kindness. But she mentioned a key takeaway I took was how do you know when people are walking over you when you're being kind, though? Because it is a real thing when you're being too kind. Like people can just start walking over you. And so she's like, it's not that kind of kindness. It's kindness it's in conscientiousness. It's, did my husband take out the trash this morning without me asking? Did I leave that note on the table to acknowledge her doing the dishes and cooking? It's like the little things, and obviously they're focused solely on a marriage. But I think what like David was tagging was, it's really just like being your conscientiousness in the world, right? Like, do you acknowledge the little things that other people do, so people acknowledge the things that you do for them? And it's like that goes a long way. But it's also admirable to recognize when people are walking over you, and you know when to cut back on that. Like kindness is like, well, I see that you're like abusing my niceness.
Yeah.
So I think that was a good point that you brought up.
Hey, John, why do you think being kind would lead to a better life?
Well, it's like, what is being kind? Like, is it just showing someone respect?
That's a good question. Let's see.
Because I've been thinking about that. So,
What does it mean to be kind? According to the Google.
yeah.
I want to say it's something like,
No. Let Google tell us, okay?
Google, give us the
all
answer.
right, I've been silenced.
Let's see. Being selfless, caring, compassionate, and unconditionally kind. So they use the word in its own
Yeah, that's not a
definition.
good definition. I learned that in fucking elementary school.
What are some examples? Let's see.
John's fucking woke, dog.
Being polite. Carrying someone's bags, buying a box of cookies. No, this is bad too.
Ask
What was the initial
ChatGPT, dude. Dude, fuck Google.
All right,
We
let's
all
pull it
know
up.
where it's at nowadays, dude. Let's just ask our AI overlord.
Whoa, dude.
Let's ask our AI overlord.
What?
John got the creative director being on. That's why he's going crazy.
Being kind means showing concern, empathy, and goodwill towards others
Empathy.
without expecting anything in return. So unconditional.
Yeah.
Kindness involves treating others with respect, understanding, and compassion, even when they may not deserve it or have treated us poorly in the past.
Yeah.
Define empathy.
No. Come on.
Empathy is basically being in someone else's shoes. I can look it up. But
Is it
empathy is
understanding-
to be into somebody else's shoes.
Yeah, understanding someone else's emotions.
And then
Like,
the original
what's-
question, Jay, was why do I think kindness would be better? Would it be a good virtue to have?
Lead to a better life.
If everyone showed everyone just some self-respect, at the very least, if like that's the only part of kindness that gets taken, it'd be a better place in general, you know? And then if we added all those other things about like selflessness, like caring, empathy, I mean, I couldn't tell you a single person that would say, I don't want that, you know? I know it's,
Yeah.
we just like that better. We're social creatures. Like, it's nice when someone brings you a little treat to work because they thought about you when they were stopping by the gas station. Someone likes it when you say, hey, I like your shoes. Are those new? I talked to a guy at the gym today. He's had long hair since I've known him. I've never talked to this guy. I've seen him for like years. And he just shaved his head. And I was like, bro, did you just get a haircut? You're a new man, you know? And he was like, oh, thanks. Because I knew that must have been huge for him to shave his head. He's fucking had long hair for years, you know?
Yeah.
So wouldn't that
Yeah.
be just a better place if we all like acknowledge, respected each other and like empathize a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I wonder how it would be if I looked through it through John's eyes or Jay's eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the refusal to show empathy can, like you said, the opposite's true, right? Like the world would be more hostile. I think the little empathy that you can try and practice and show people will actually make the world a better place. and we'll touch on that too when we get to like the whole that is described in this book, is that whatever you do that's good, it also benefits the whole as well.
Yeah. Do you think to be kind is to turn the other cheek in certain instances?
No, see, that's where I disagree. Because it's all about like turn the other cheeks, mean like, or like being walked over. Well, no. I have self-respect for me too. So I have my own principles and stuff.
How would you describe turning the other cheek?
Well, in the Bible, I think the quote is, if someone slaps you, you turn the other cheek. Biblical verse.
If someone slaps you?
Let's see. Before I go, about turning.
That was like, ain't nobody slapping me.
Yeah, so like let's see. But I say unto you, this is Matthew 5, verse 38 to 48. But I say unto you that ye resist not. Come on now. Let me see. Hold on.
Huh?
If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek.
Which cheeks?
All four cheeks, bro.
I think
Four slaps.
That could be taken, because what I hear is not necessarily like it's almost like, I don't know, I could be wrong though, like in that version of being slapped and you're turning your cheek, you're trying to give the person the benefit of the doubt in a way, like you're saying like you're not bad, right? Yeah. People fuck up, people like I'm not too sure what he's still in. I'm not too sure what that verse is trying to represent, but that's kind of like what I hear initially is like, if someone slaps you, obviously, like, I don't take that like physically, but let's say someone slaps you, it's almost like you should turn to your new cheek that hasn't been slapped. So like, you're expecting them not to slap you again because you're giving them that second chance. Like you're giving them the benefit of the doubt that they won't do it again.
It means to not do anything to hurt someone who has hurt you.
Not to slap them back.
Yeah. Would it make you feel better if you slapping someone else back?
Well, I think
most of us just escalate from there.
Yeah.
It takes everything in your being to not do it, though.
Especially if you get slapped in front of people.
Oh, dude. Yeah, that's another thing.
You slap both cheeks, you got the other two cheeks.
You gonna get both my cheeks.
You get all four of them.
Pause. All right, book 4. This book talks about the transience of life and the importance of accepting death as a natural part of the cycle of life. So, Devil.
You little
Devin,
devil, you.
Paragraph 43.
I'm going to go find that little sucker. All right, paragraph 43, book 4. There is a river of creation, and time is a violent stream. As soon as one thing comes into sight, it is swept past, and another is carried down. Two will be taken on its way. What was the summary of this chapter?
The transience of life and the importance of accepting death as a natural part of the cycle of life.
I know this is like, obviously death is hard for all of us. Like, you know what I mean? Like no one has really experienced what death is like. I don't know, maybe some people have, I don't. But I think when we think of death, my first initial thought when I heard this is it's my natural instinct to think like, if I appreciate life, I have to appreciate death. Because I love being here. I love having this existence of consciousness and being, knowing that there's something beyond me that controls in the creation of this thing that's here called life. And so it gives me awareness or the capability to acknowledge there's something past me that will like carry my soul or carry me somewhere else. And that gives me the benefit, I guess, the benefit of the doubt to be like, hey, when I die, like I want to go out with like courage and understand I left everything in this life that I had. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people don't really deal with death well. I met a lot of people. Claire's one of them. Like she just doesn't like talking about death. But I think I think it can be a really good thing for people to not only bring awareness to like appreciate life more, but it also opens the door to recognize like you'll probably push yourself a little bit more in life when you recognize like the present moment's all you have. There is no future. The future isn't real. You can be gone tomorrow. Death, it could be right around the corner. Obviously, that can be taken very hardcore. It could become very pessimistic. I think it's just what he's saying is river there is a river of creation. I take that as life. The river is life, and time is a violent stream. You're going to have up and downs. Life's going to be a roller coaster. You're not always going to be high. You're not always going to be low. There's a balance between life and death. As soon as one thing comes into sight, it is swept past, and another is carried down, just like the roller coaster. And two will be taken on its way. So I think if you can appreciate life, you should work to understand death a little bit more.
Yeah. I forget what show it was mentioned, but that exact imagery was used in a show.
The river?
Yeah, where like you throw a leaf onto the river, right? Let's say it's a timeline. You throw a leaf onto the river, it gets swept away at some point, just for another leaf to get up on that river at that same spot, and just for the river to keep going and sweeping things away.
Yeah.
So the question I had here is, how do you guys deal with the idea of death?
How do I deal with the idea of death?
Yeah. Some people don't think about it and refuse to think about it or recognize it or acknowledge it.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the majority.
I think for me, I recognize that we don't have all the time in the world. Like, going back to like the present moment, every day I live, I do my best to, like, I think of like my family when I think about like death, knowing that, like one day we're all going to have to like kind of leave this earth and our soul goes somewhere, and we don't know what that is going to like look like, feel like, but all I know is that I can start to like live in the present moment now and, create memories, like be present with my family. And over time, like the little things, like I call my dad, and mom, every couple days or so, my little brother, check in with him all the time. I just like with you guys, like the simple calls, that's how I deal with knowing that that's coming one day, is that we can do stuff like this. And it's a part of life. Like I have to accept it, because I think the opposite of that would be, not so great,
Like fear,
like,
in a way.
Like fear, like it'll implant fear in your heart. And we learned from like Outwitting the Devil that's like where he can operate and
Take
make you
advantage
drift.
of.
You can turn to a lot of things to kind of cope with that.
How about you, John? Have anything to mention about that?
No,
No?
pretty good.
Nailed it. All right.
Solidify that, baby.
All right. Book 5 talks about the nature of the universe and the interconnectedness of all things. So, John, you have a quote on this?
Let me get there.
Go for it.
Book 5.
Oh, hang on. I got this. Okay. Yeah, book 5. It's the first paragraph, paragraph 1.
Okay. And then tell me, why do you think this is an important idea after you read that quote?
At break of day, when you are reluctant to get up, have this thought ready to mind. I am getting up for a man's work. Do I still then resent it if I am going out to do what I was born for, the purpose for which I was brought into the world? Or was I created to wrap myself in blankets and keep warm? But this is more pleasant. Were you then born for pleasure, all for feeling, not for action? Can you not see plants, birds, ants, spiders, bees, all doing their own work, each helping in their own way to order the world? And then you do not want to do any of the work of a human being. You do not want to hurry to the demands of your own nature, but one needs to rest too. One does indeed, I agree, but nature has set limits to this too, just as it has to eating and drinking, and yet you go beyond these limits, beyond what you need. Not in your actions, though, not any longer. Here you stay below your capability. I like this because when he talks about the animals, and one thing Marcus Aurelius has stressed, like in his notes in this book, that I really liked, was that you got to be in tune with nature. Okay, human beings have like, especially today, I think we forgot that we're natural animals. We're from Earth. We're terrestrial. We fucking rise with the sun. And to do things that don't align with what's natural is already inherently bad for you, you know? And like when a bee wakes up, it doesn't even question what it has to do. Like the worker bee does what the worker bee does. The queen bee does what the queen bee does. The honey bees make the honey, you know? Like the squirrel gets the nuts and buries them. Like they don't, they just do it naturally. And when you do things naturally, like the animals feel good doing what they do. Like Ace is happy when he's doing like training, you know? And for the people that have these thoughts, like, you know, ABC, always be comfortable. And like, you know, I need to fucking feel inclusive, or all these fucking buzzwords on like how to be lazy and how to like accept you for being lazy. It's unaligned with nature. So I really like the part where it's like, hey, you're a man. You're going to wake up and do a man's work. It means something. Only you can do it. Like, you're part of the beehive. You're part of the world. You need to get up and do what you got to do, buddy. You know?
Mm-hmm. And be happy.
You should be happy about it. You know?
Put a fucking smile on your face.
Yeah. Yeah. Nailed it. All right. Anything you guys want to add to that, or we can move forward and mention it later?
Yeah.
Good.
Wrapped
That was
up.
good.
All right. Book 6 talks about the importance of living in harmony with others, of being kind and compassionate to those around us. So paragraph 21, it says, if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in one's own self-deception and ignorance. And I wrote next to it, plasticity/growth. So the importance of living with harmony, in harmony with others, of being kind and compassionate to those around us. So there's another quote in this chapter that he talks about if you can show somebody the better way, do it. If they're unaccepting of that idea, turn the other cheek. I think it's important to be malleable in mindset and be willing to change if you find out that you're wrong. So the discussion point I have here is, how would we describe the interconnectedness of things? Excuse me. That is off here. But this kind of goes hand in hand with the last chapter and being interconnected with and recognizing that you're part of the whole. Yeah. So if you can see where you're wrong in certain ideas or actions, recognize that they're wrong and be willing to change. So that was one really important point from this chapter, or this book, that really stood out. And I think it was really important because I don't really see too much of it nowadays in everybody. We all fall prey to this at some point or another. But I think when people have an idea, they surround themselves with other people that agree with the same idea and really don't ever look for the evidence of if they're wrong or not and test their idea as a hypothesis. So it was just a really interesting idea that I had read, and it really stood out.
What did you say? Plasticity equals
/ growth. It was / growth. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just showing that you're, when something's not set in stone, it's ductile, and you can change. Yeah. All right. So book 7 talks about the importance of staying true to oneself and not being swayed by the opinions of others. So David, paragraph 15 of chapter 7, book 7. And then how do you think this applies to real life?
Book 7, was it?
Paragraph 15.
Paragraph 15. Mm-hmm. All right. Others. Okay, so the paragraph 15 states, whatever anyone does or says, I must be a good man. It is as if an emerald or gold or purple were always saying, whatever anyone does or says, I must be an emerald and keep my own color. So I think this ties to the overall topic of book 7, which was the importance of staying true to yourself and not being swayed. I think this paragraph was written beautifully because, right, like all emeralds are green, right? Mm-hmm. So if you say you are, you should maintain your color, because once you lose your color, you won't be what you say you are anymore at that point. And yeah, I really love that quote, and like
I think it's really interesting too, because whether the emerald is being looked at by someone, whether it's dark, whether it's light outside, the emerald's always green.
any circumstance, yeah.
Yeah. So what would help in that endeavor? So if you're an emerald, what would help you stay an emerald in that sense, in that context?
Well, I think he's talking about being a good man, because he leads with the sentence, whatever anyone does or says, I must be a good man. So what does it mean to maintain your color as a good man? Is to keep your word and stay truthful to your word through actions, even if nobody's around to sort of take account for what you're doing. I think, and it helps to have a solid set of foundational principles, virtues, things that we've covered previously already. But
if those are well set, then you're always going to be an emerald.
Yeah, I think that's what the color, at least what I've come to define more. Like we talked about a little bit, like the color is essentially your principles, because it's almost like what you were just talking about the previous book. Elasticity is growth, and so I don't necessarily, for the readers, I don't necessarily think he's referring to people like switching sides and being wishy-washy with your principles. I think when he talks about being an emerald and being to your true color, I think he's solely talking about your principles. He's not talking about maybe you made a mistake on a fucking history class and you made a horrible argument or something.
Yeah.
Or how you conducted yourself in a certain instance with somebody you can change and apologize or something like that.
Yeah. So I think the color is principle based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
based. One of my faves.
Book 8, The Nature of Change and the Importance of Adapting to New Circumstances and Challenges. Paragraph 22, Devin.
Get to that.
It's a good one.
Concentrate on the subject or the act in question, on principle or meaning. You deserve what you're going through. You would rather become good tomorrow than be good today. Can you repeat the more? I always forget what
So it's the nature of change and the importance of adapting to new circumstances and challenges. So the question I have here is, what do you think Aurelius means by you deserve what you're going through?
I think we talked about it a little bit, but I'll kind of go into more depth about deserving, right? Because I think we mentioned it, like if you deserve things, that's kind of, you're creating an entitled mentality.
Right.
But when you're working through things in life, when you're going up and down like the roller coaster I explained earlier, you're going to go through things you don't feel like you deserve. You're going to go through shit that's like, how do I even get through this? How did people get through this at some point? Because I think John always talks about it. It's like, dude, there's nothing new under the sun. Like if even Marcus Aurelius talks about it, if someone's done it before, that means it's humanly possible. So whatever you're going through, just recognize that change, whether you like it or not, is going to come. If you deserve it or not, it's almost irrelevant, right? Like you deserving what you want is relevant to every human on this planet. If you want what another person has or like achieved or an accolade or an achievement, you have to go through that uncomfortable change to some certain extent. You're not going to stay the same forever. And so I have here, is the change not worthy of what you deserve? And when I haven't heard anybody say that in a long time. I can't remember the last time someone says like, oh, I deserve that. Like, I think I've just probably heard like a book or someone talk about it. But if someone was in that mentality, I don't think they really want what they say they want. If they're claiming like, oh, I deserve to have like that big house, or I deserve to have these books, I deserve to have, well, it's like, well, you're doing the action, right? You're putting up the work, right? Oh, well, no, like well, then you don't deserve anything. You know what I mean? So that if you're not accepting that change, if you're not accepting the consequences of life, down or up, whatever it looks like, then you're really not being true to yourself. And no one deserves anything on this planet. So everybody works for everything they have. So
so you deserve what you earn.
Exactly. Yeah.
You earn what you want. You got to earn it.
Yeah. It's all
I would hear this example a lot as a young adult with relationships, right? Like, I don't deserve this relationship, or I deserve a X, Y, and Z person. I deserve this. but why do you deserve this person? Have you done the work on yourself to earn the type of relationship that you want? I would hear that one a lot. I was in that same boat too. You know, I'd say like, I don't deserve this, but yeah, I was not acting on the things that needed to be changed in order to get what I want. So, yeah.
All right, we'll move forward to book 9. He talks about the importance of focusing on what is truly important in life and not getting bogged down by trivial matters. So we have paragraph 13, and it's just a light touch, and then we'll mention a couple of tools that we've discovered and then move into book 10. So, Devin, if you want to read 13.
13.
Oh, I'm in book 8 still.
9. Yeah, book 9, 13. And then we'll just mention a couple tools we got.
All right. So today I escaped from all bothering circumstances, or rather I threw them out. They were nothing external but inside me, just my own judgments.
Yeah. So,
do you have something on that?
Yeah. I think this points us back towards Stephen Covey's idea of circle of concern and circle of influence. So he mentions, the first sentence of that. If you could read that one more time.
Today I escaped from all bothering circumstances, or rather I threw them out.
Right. So they weren't inside his circle of influence or his circle of concern, so he just threw them out.
Yeah.
Right.
Throw them out.
So if you want to learn more about that, go check that out at the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
We even have videos on that. We got
Right.
whole shorts and stuff talking about the circle of influence and circle of concern. So
Yeah, let's
go
link
check that out.
Yeah.
Let's go check that out.
We'll link it in the description.
All right, so book 10, the importance of living in accordance with reason and not being ruled by our emotions or passions. So paragraph 15, David, book 10.
Oh, shit. You got me. Give me a second.
Go for it.
All right. The time you have left is short. Live it as if you were on a mountain. Here or other makes no difference. If wherever you live you take the world as your city. Let men see, let them observe a true man living in accordance with nature. If they cannot bear him, let them kill him. A better fate than a life like theirs.
And we had this question when we did our weekly meetings about what does he mean by as if you were on a mountain? So, John, you had a really good response to this. You're muted. Live as
Wake
if
your
you're
ass up, cuz.
I
as
didn't
if
know
you're
I was
on a
going to
mountain.
get called on by the teacher, dog.
Popcorn John. Yeah, you had some good stuff to talk about this. What does it mean as if you were living on a mountain here or there? What difference does it make, right?
That must have been pretty off the hip. So,
You said, imagine what it's like up on top of a mountain. Is there anybody there?
yeah. No.
Ring any bells?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, you just have to do what you got to do, dog. You know, that's how, you know,
Straight from the hip
like,
again.
how would you live? Like that corny thing you always see in school. How would you live if no one was watching? You know, like when you're up on the mountain, you can't ask anybody for help. You just got to do it. So,
Caveman shit right there.
It reminds me of the gym, the weight room we had on campus. It said, champions are made when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
super
Right.
cliche,
So
but true.
that's what makes me think about when it says, live as if you were on a mountain.
It reminds me of the emerald, keep your color.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah, what
That's a
about
good one.
what do you guys think about the last part where he says, "Let men see, let them observe a true man living in accordance with nature. If they cannot bear him, let them kill him." I like how I take it is almost like the world we're living in right now, where like truth is being discarded as like not truth, and like when people try to like speak it like. Because I believe there's objective truth in everything on this planet, and if that starts to be like abdicated or neglected in some way, you'll start to recognize like those whole people. Like obviously the C-19 thing, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that comes out about that's like was fake or false and mischievous to get people.
C90.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
I was like, what?
Yeah, I just got it. Okay, all right. Yeah.
but because I don't want like I
Yeah.
don't want to go into too much detail, but it's almost like that, like
Let
that
them
nature
kill
of,
him.
like and it's almost like not there. Obviously, people weren't like getting killed and don't like, but like
No, they're
it's
taking.
almost like you're taking
Yeah, yeah.
people's livelihoods
Yeah,
away. You're
yeah.
firing people. You're like
It
not
stands
allowing
true.
people to
Die
go to
with
school.
honor.
Like yeah, exactly. Die with
stands
honor.
Right,
true
because a
today.
better life than a fate, or a better fate than a life like theirs, meaning like they're living in like non-truth. They're living in delusion land.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I'm gonna move us into book 11. He said he also explores the concept of fate and the idea that we should accept what we cannot control and focus instead on what we can control, which is our own thoughts and actions. Again, Stephen Covey, Circle of Concern, Circle of Influence. But paragraph 16, live through life in the best way you can. The power to do so is in a man's own soul. If he is indifferent to things, indifferent. And he will be indifferent if he looks at these things both as a whole and analyzed into their parts, and remembers that none of them imposes a judgment of itself or forces itself on us. The things themselves are inert. It is we who procreate judgments about them and, as it were, imprint them on our minds. But there is no need for imprinting at all, and any accidental print can immediately be erased. Remember, too, that our attention to these things can only last a little while, and then life will be at an end. And what, anyway, is the difficulty in them? If they are in accord with nature, welcome them, and you will find them easy. If they are contrary to nature, look for what accords with your own nature and go straight for that. Even if it brings you no glory, anyone can be forgiven for seeking his own proper good. And we wrote here, fate should never be stated in absolutes.
Dude, book 11 really has some good stuff in it.
Yeah. Yeah, book 11 and 12 both had all the bangers.
Those are the bangers.
One thing I want to say, just because we're on this, and it's a short one, he just says, again, mere things, brute facts should not provoke your rage. And just for today's reader, if you find yourself getting mad when someone's sharing information with you, try to have that in the back of your head. Be like, why am I getting mad about just some information? I see a lot of times people get emotional when we start debating, just start debating ideology, facts. They haven't brought up COVID-19. People get emotional when it comes to just talking about some basic things that have come out on the data. People get emotional when they start talking about the Ukrainian war. Some people get emotional when you say that Biden has dementia, for real. So if you find yourself getting in a rage over mere facts, then I think you need to reassess what you find important as, because the truth should make you mad,
Yeah.
Facts, man. Well said.
Facts.
Oh, yeah. All right, John, can you read paragraph 9 from chapter 12? Excuse me, book 12? And then we'll shift into a different part of our episode from there.
The model for the application of your principles is the boxer rather than the gladiator. The gladiator puts down or takes up the sword he uses, but the boxer always has his hands and needs only to clench them into fists. So,
Catch these hands.
That's what he's saying.
I love that quote, man.
They should just always be on you.
That's my
grab
favorite
Playboy
quote.
Cardi once said,
Favorite.
rather be caught with it than without it.
Yeah, he once said.
All right, let's shift. There was one more quote that I really wanted to mention in there, but it's no more talk about what it is to be a good man.
Yeah, that was chapter 10. That was chapter 10. Yeah.
Chapter 10? Yeah, I'm over here looking for it.
It was right underneath the thing David read. So I think it's paragraph 13, chapter 10.
Okay, let's see.
Jay and I were like, we were going to talk about it, and then we were like, wait, we shouldn't just talk about it.
Yeah.
That's just it. You just be a good man.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
one good
I
person
got it.
waddling
It's
about
actually
it.
16.
16?
Don't even read. Don't even talk about it.
Yeah, dude.
No more roundabout discussion of what makes a good man. Be one. I wrote, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
All right. So now, kind of our own takeaways from it. What was the most impactful lesson from the book to you? Of all the lessons
For
we
me,
discussed.
The most impactful thing and the thing I love the most about this is that we're all part of the whole. We're all what's good for the whole is good for me. What's good for me is natural for me, And I think of for anyone who reads Jujutsu Kaisen, the main character, he's got this thing where like he's like, I know what I am. I'm a cog, and like behind him is like a big silhouette of a cog, and like he's accepted that like he's like, all I got to do is just do my part. Like I'm not the main character. I just got to be the cog. But with him recognizing that, he becomes even more of the main character. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Itadori.
Like being the cog in the machine, an important piece of the machine. You know? And everyone is a different size cog. Everyone helps out humanity in their own shot. Everyone has a role to play, whether it's like furthering science, whether it's like being a babysitter, whether it's just fucking doing something, working at McDonald's. Someone's got to serve you those fucking fries. But like, you gotta wake up and help us all make it work. You know?
Would you say everybody has to adopt some sort of responsibility? Everybody has a responsibility as a human being on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Has their own level of responsibility that they're meant to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think about capitalism too, the thing that helps the most people makes the most money.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you bring the most value.
And that's like, it boils down to that.
They make the thing that's like most natural for people to use if it's like a product, you know? That's what you use.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
All right.
Scrub daddies.
How about you guys? Did you guys identify with a different one?
I think book 11, chapter 10, what were we calling? Paragraph 10. He just talks about you should avoid flattery as much as anger in your dealings with them both. Both are against the common good. He continues on. He says, anger, in your fist of anger, have this thought ready to mind that there's nothing manly in being angry, but a gentle calm is both more human and therefore more virile. Virile.
Virile.
And it's almost like virile. And it's almost like we were talking about the beginning of the episode where David was talking about kindness, and we went into that a little bit. And then he continues on. He says, not the indignant and complaining. The closer to control of emotion, the closer to power. Anger is as much a sign of a weakness as pain. Both have been wounded and have surrendered. I think this is the biggest takeaway I've taken from this book is like he's teaching us. I just, me personally, I think why this is big to me is because I love stoicism. I love like that emotionalist, not emotionalist without integrity, but like recognizing you're choosing to be emotionalist so you can get through things. And when you need to be open to emotion, you can be vulnerable to people in life and have that openness about yourself. But I think the biggest thing is it's manly to show vulnerability. It's not manly to be angry. It's not human to take your anger out on other humans. Right, that's you're going into the side of evil in the world, and with him trying to teach himself like the lessons that the older, his parents, his adoptive father, the emperors that have shown him how to lead a virtuous life. It's cool to see him talk to himself, and also us read this and get a lot of insight of like how to lead a virtuous life, right?
Yeah.
What does virtue actually mean to an emperor of this time, and how did he see it? And I think that's the biggest thing I took away was don't lead by emotion. It's not always great to lead by logic either. You kind of have to find that balance. You're in a whole of every cog you're a cog in the system. Find your balance, find your responsibility, find your place in life. And just continue turning your gears, continue moving forward. And so that's kind of like
when you say emotionless, that's separate from indifference, right?
How would you define indifference? Like how would
not caring?
Yes, yeah. Like so, emotionless is like not dealing in emotion.
Stay in a zone.
Yeah, it's like not allowing your emotions to dictate your actions.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like, oh, I don't give a fuck. Like, no,
that's indifference.
That's like, it's almost, you're not being ignorant. You're choosing to like, hey, my emotions don't determine my like actions that I'm moving forward with right now.
Yeah, I think that's why he mentions flatteries. Like, you don't go too high, you don't go too low. Yeah. Okay, cool. How about you, David?
I think John had touched on it.
Okay.
Like recognizing that you play a part in the greater whole of the world and the society that you live in. What benefits Me benefits the whole, benefits me. And I think it's a good mentality for people who might feel like they have a sort of, they view the world maybe a little bit more negative than positive. I think this is a pretty good antidote to kind of like adopt some responsibility and then do something, even if it's good for you or for others around you, that you still have like you still have power to make the world a better place by doing those things and leading a virtuous life and being kind. I think it's my biggest takeaway from the book.
I want to say that like what I talked about, it helped me appreciate my job more, and I already loved my job, you know. So it helped me appreciate it more. It helped me appreciate all the things I do, you know. I'm like, man, like fucking, if I didn't go to the dog park, who would, you know? Like, like.
Somebody got to go.
Somebody got to
my place.
Somebody got to be me, you know. So like, fuck.
I want to say, shout out to you, John. I think recently you've been kind of saying that quote, like if someone's coming at you, dang, I got all this stuff I got to do at work, or it's stressful, life stressful, that you would say, well, thank God you're the guy that's handling it, or you're the person that can handle it. If it was anybody else, they wouldn't be able to handle it. Just those words alone, I've been saying it to people at work who are stressed out, and I can see it, like their brain totally switches. They're like, oh, yeah, okay. Like
exactly. And if you can just teach yourself to like shift the lens on like how you look at stuff, like, man, like, and my other friends do, they're like, dude, they're like, if there's that, like, they call me, like, they're laughing, they're like, if there's anybody else, they wouldn't be able to do that. But luckily, this huge L I took today happened to me, you know?
The one that stood out the most to me was the first book, the lessons he learned from his family, teachers, and various philosophical schools. I think that writing assignment was really awesome. And I thought it was important to mention in there my failures as well.
Yeah.
So being thankful for them, you got to be thankful for the good and the bad. So learning from past experiences and taking the time to sit down and learn, and actually process it again and have it in writing to go back and be like, oh, these are the lessons I learned, was really cool and something that stood out to me the most and was extremely impactful, and actually stood as like I have in writing things that I am appreciative for different people in my life. So it could range from authors that I enjoy, family members, friends, experiences. So I have that, and if I wanted to share that with those people, I can share that. So
yeah, that's good.
Impactful to me and my life. So that one stood out the most to me. So
I want to say too, one thing that I just remembered from this book was that if you struggle with the idea that, we're all going to leave this earth one day, is that imagine yourself telling that story back to, your, I don't know, your family or children or whatever at your funeral. Like, make sure that your life is worth telling. The story of your life was worth telling at the end.
Yeah. Start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right. So what was your opinion of the book, and would you recommend it to someone?
Fire. This is amazing. I love this little book, man. There's so much like knowledge packed into this book that feels like, I don't know, it's like so profound in a very short amount of like sentences and little paragraphs. And I don't know, I think this book, the timing was perfect for a lot of things that maybe were happening in our lives right now. Mm-hmm. I think you can relate a lot to it if you really think about it and kind of ponder on some of these ideas. And I highly recommend it to people who do want to like see if there is another way to shift the lens on how you view the world, right? If you do view it as maybe a little bit more negative, or you are not recognizing like the part that you play in life, this is a really good book for that.
Mm. Yeah. I would recommend it for anybody like seeking a little bit more wisdom, or like a new profound way of thinking about wisdom. Mm-hmm.
Your opinion.
It's a great book. I like this book a lot. I love wisdom. I love books that are focused on how to change your lens, throw in a new lens, kind of take the old one out, kind of look at life in a different perspective. Mm-hmm. But I think overall, if you are reading this book, I think I would practice the way, if I were to reread it again, I think I would practice the way you read it, or I think you or John read it. We're like, because I read it like how David read it. Like you sit down and read the whole chapter in a few, like, you know what I mean? And yeah, if I reread this, it's definitely going to be like a poem book. It's definitely going to be like a paragraph from each book that like I have highlights in, because the whole book's highlighted now, so I know where like I can find some wisdom now. So maybe 6 months down the road, I see this book, I'm like, I'm going to pull this one out because there's a lot of wisdom in it.
Yeah, you read the book, viewers out there, the way that you can handle this information.
Definitely.
Probably you, like for me, my mind is all over the place, and it made more sense for me to just sit down at a coffee shop for 2 to 3 hours and just kind of think and ponder, make notes. But yeah.
Sip his lavender latte.
Or John, waking up in the morning.
Just for me,
doing 2 miles, fucking, handling it. You do that.
I like to just read a little bite at a time and think about it. I treated it just like poetry. I would, I'm self-conscious about my own vocabulary and stuff, so I would read it out loud because it's a good practice to get, if you want to speak better and use better vocabulary, you got to have practice saying it, not just in here, but in here. So, to me, it was like just 2 birds, 1 stone. Like if I'm going to go ahead and do something, I like to get the most out of it because like fucking we only have so much time in the day, So I would read a little bit and then I'd go for a run and I'd be like, I really like that one part, And now that we finished the book, it's actually, Dev mentioned it, like things are highlighted. I'll just pick it up and I'll open it and I'll see where I'm at and I'll skim through and then I'll reread like paragraphs that I've liked. And I'm like, that made me feel really good, Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of
awesome.
like, now that we finished it, I kind of like the way he wrote it, because it's not like you have to kind of bust it open like a David Goggins where you have to like read the whole chapter to get the moral of the story. It's almost like the whole chapter is the paragraph. And it's like that one paragraph can define the whole chapter for you.
And we talk about in this whole episode how it breaks down, this book is about this book is about this. After book 1, it's all over the place. With the overarching topic of book 9 is in book 2, it's in book 12, and the overarching idea of book 6 is in every other book. So it's not like, there is some overarching themes, and you try to connect a thread throughout the chapter, but really, you read one chapter, you're getting little excerpts of every chapter within it. So, pick it up. Read a paragraph, ponder it. I like the idea of kind of bite-sized pieces where you read 1 or 2 and then you think about it for a while and you come back.
Yeah.
So it is a very good book. That's my opinion, and I would recommend it to everyone.
It's a good looking book. I mean,
I know, it looks
the
really
color is tight. There's this really cool pattern. Yeah, it's small.
Whatever fit in anything.
Huge flex, just on the coffee table. Friends come over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh yeah, this is a little book I'm reading. Little song.
No big deal.
Hey, Shoddy.
No big deal.
You trying to hear some meditation?
He was just the Roman emperor. No big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal. I'm just saying, like, life, like, it comes and goes. So.
One's good.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another installment of Paradyme Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and learned a thing or two like we did. So before you take off, remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment, follow us on our social media platforms, share the video, follow us on the podcast platforms, and we are on there. Drop a 5-star review, and we hope to hear from you. Let us know if you liked the video, what your favorite part of the book was, and always remember, the work you put in now equals who you'll be tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.